Today I'll be doing my November wrap-up and December TBR pile. So just to let you know in advance, I do use the library quite a lot, so I don't always have all of the books I've read, because as much as I'd like to own every single book I read too many for that. I would be completely broke, which would be really bad. So, because I do have to return them to the library, I won't always have them, but I will try to if possible. My rating system I'll use will just be 1 through 5 stars, so it kind of aligns with Goodreads, which I use a lot. And below I'll put kind of what I mean by a 1 or a 2 or a 5. So the first book I read this month was Daughter of the Forest by Juliet Marie. It was an adult fantasy series and I really enjoyed it. And I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Timepiece by Myra McIntyre. It was the second book in the Hourglass series, and I gave that 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. I've never read this before, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was The Egypt Game by Zilpha Keatley Snyder. It's a middle grade novel, and as you can see by all these tabs here, I read it for a class for a project, so it's kind of been used. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I really enjoyed this as a child, and I enjoyed it just as much as an adult as well. The next book I read was Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor. I was so excited for this to come out. I loved the first book, which is Daughter of Smoke and Bone, and I love this one just as much, if not more. It was great. It definitely did not suffer from middle book syndrome that a lot of trilogies right now are. So if you haven't read Daughter of Smoke and Bone, do, and then pick this up. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Defiance by C.J. Redwine. I will actually have a review of this in the next couple of days, and I'll link it above as soon as it's up. And I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Deadline by Mary Grant, which is number 2 in the Newsflesh trilogy. It's a great political zombie thriller. That sounds kind of odd, but they're really, really good. And I gave that 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was For Darkness Shows the Stars by Diana Petrifield. At least that's, I think you say her name. It is a sci-fi retelling of Persuasion by Jane Austen. And I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. And the last book I read this month was Jessica's Guide for Dating on the Dark Side, which I picked up used when I was browsing in a bookstore because I believe it was Bookable said she really, really enjoyed this book. And it seemed pretty humorous, so I went ahead and picked it up, and it was actually really good. It was a lot better than I was actually expecting. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So that was all I read for this month. If you've read any of these books, be sure to comment below, tell me how you like them, and if there's anything similar that you think I should read. So let's move on to what I'll be reading in December. This is actually kind of a new concept for me. I don't generally plan out what I'm going to read. I just kind of read whatever catches my interest or what I find at the library while I'm browsing. But I'm going to try it and we'll see how it goes. The first book I'll be reading is Blackout by Myra Grant. It's the third book in the Newsflesh trilogy. As I said, I read Deadline last month, and I'm going to go ahead and finish the third book because the series is really, really good. And I have to know what happens after the cliffhanger on the second book, which is probably the most heart-wrenching cliffhanger I've read in a long time. I will also be reading The Blood Keeper by Tessa Gratton. This is the second in a series. The first one is called Blood Magic, and this is a YA fantasy book about witches in the Midwest. And the next book I will be reading is Looking for Alaska by John Green. I know, I actually haven't read any John Green book before, and everyone I could possibly know online in real life tells me to read John Green books, and I just haven't yet. So I'm excited to read it, and hopefully I will like it as much as everyone says I will. The next book I'll be reading is Monstrous Beauty by Elizabeth Fama, which is a YA series about mermaids, but it's a very dark take on mermaids as far as I've heard. Next I'll be reading The Unnaturals by Tiffany Trent. It's a steampunk YA series with, I believe, a bit of magic. It just caught my interest at the library, so I thought I'd pick it up. And the last thing I plan to read will be Jessica Rules the Dark Side by Beth Fantasky, which is the sequel to Jessica's Guide to Dating on the Dark Side, which I read last month. I didn't actually even know there was a sequel, and when I was at the library today, I saw it on the shelf, so I picked it up. So that's what I'm planning to read for the month of December. Let me know what you plan to be reading. And if you'd like me to do a review on any of those books in particular, please let me know, and hopefully I can get that up. Like I said, I'll have a review of Defiance by CJ Redwine up in a couple of days. Want to make sure you see that review, hit the subscribe button above. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.